welcome Lisa from the Here and There Collective. I'm super excited because today we are at Silver Art Projects, here to visit the studio of Sagarika Sundaram. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, I think for folks who are maybe less familiar with your practice, would love to just kind of hear a little bit about you and what your practice is like.
Sure. My name's Sagarika Sundaram. I grew up between India and Dubai. I work in sculpture, mainly with fiber, materially with wool and silk. I have been, over the past 5 years, I would say, working on developing these sort of sculptural constructions that feel in between sort of painterly in the way I use color and material, but also sculptural in the way that they have form and break space and take space. But really what I've been exploring is the relationship between the inside and outside, and the kind of edge between what is human, non-human, botanical, and also bodily. So this is the territory in which I'm playing.
That's amazing. And I feel like even the work behind us, I love this as the example. It's like such an interesting encapsulation of your practice right now. And so maybe we can even get a little bit into like just the start of, your work and maybe even like a work like this. And I think it really kind of comes down to the fundamentals of the fibers you're actually using. So can you talk a little bit about that and where does your process start?
My work begins with sourcing my material, and where it comes from is very important to me. Mm-hmm. So, because it really determines the nature of the material. So I work with wool from the lower Himalayas. I source wool from upstate New York and the Catskills. I also have been working with some naturally dyed wool from Mexico, Oaxaca specifically. All of these relationships are sort of pots, cooking at different rates. And at different stages, the relationships are at different stages. I think what I'm moving towards is this network of relationships, my own equivalent of the Silk Road, where I am kind of connecting all these different places where historically my material was grown felt making was practiced by people who are pastoral nomads, or who grow sheep, and felt was used to make everything from shoes to hats to homes, especially in Central Asia, Mongolia, Kazakhstan. So I'm interested in the material's strength and the versatility of the material. Mm-hmm. Wool is an amazing material to work with. It's just, continually, it's so alive. And so where I source my material from, and also my colors from, my dyes from, are also very important to me. been looking for a title for the show. I was searching for an idea that would draw out the work and the themes in the show on multiple levels. And Source, for me, does that. Starting with the idea of the materiality of the works in the show, that they are made with wool that have a strong provenance. So that's one level on which Source operates. The other level is that the way I actually work, my process is very much working from the beginning. And as you know, again, that I dye the wool myself, and I'm working in it from a fiber level, not that is even before it is spun into a yarn. And all the yarn that you see in the show is made by hand. And the third way in which Source operates is that the actual forms of the work themselves. So these are, you see forms of seeds, biological forms, bodily forms that feel very much connected to the beginning of things, opening up, cutting things open. So yes, I was very happy when I arrived at this word that felt like it resonated on all these levels. So the works in the show are very colorful, and I wanted one work in the show where I actually used the wool in its rawest state. So here you see in this piece I'm using undyed, the brown wool. This is the way it grows on the sheep. And the ivory as well over here, and you can see in some moments the gray as well, is the undyed wool. And the reason I did this is because I feel like I'm really I stretch and I'm pushing and pulling my technique across the works in the show. And when your eye sees color, that's what it reads first. But when you see undyed wool, then your eye has more space to enter the materiality of the work. And so with this piece, I wanted to make a work where the material breathes a little more in its natural state. I do have some dyed, wool that is in the maroon sections of the piece, but I really wanted to pull back and work with just 3 colors and see what I could create and what would generate in terms of a visual, quite graphic, strong sort of composition. So when I fashion these skins out of the wool, to me, when they're installed, they often read like membranes, especially when light passes through them and creates translucency, these moments that you can see the actual way in which the fibers are like run and are cross-hatched and compressed together. And these moments where the wool actually disconnects and doesn't connect in these holes over here and light passing through, these are where it gets very interesting for me, because psychologically I think it offers the viewer an entry point into the work. And it's what is all about perfection in a way. And what I'm trying to do here is these moments of imperfection actually make the work come alive. At the heart of all of these works, which crack open and have forms within forms behind all of these folds, is the idea that there is a relationship between the internal and the external. The works themselves are very bodily and also botanical, and what that points to me is the idea that as human beings, we are not separate from nature. We are nature. We are interconnected. And so how does the internal inform the external? Also in the work is, almost like these pieces are like organisms, like creatures, and there's something very beastly about them to me. There's something almost violent in the way they are cut open, and also slightly frightening in some of the ways that they look like plant life, like a Venus flytrap. Plants that are not necessarily the most friendly. And I think what that points to, that leads me to think, about acknowledging our own violence that is inherent to what it means to be human. I think when one is in a place where we can acknowledge the violence that is inherent to human nature and nature as a whole, we're in a position where we can then start to ask, all right, then how does my inner nature influence my environment? How am I contributing to what is happening around me? And how can my own actions change and shape the world that I live in and we live in together?